Hello, hi everyone. Welcome back to Woo Can Cook. My name is Wesley, and this is a show where we are slowly cooking our way through all of the food from my childhood. Today we're diving back into our series dedicated to Chinese American food hacks with a shot at yet another item from the PF Chang's menu, which is their iconic crispy green bean appetizer. For those following along in this series, we have been dissecting classic items that come from Americanized Chinese cuisine, then reassembling them through the lens of more traditional Chinese wok cooking. In our case today, the PF Chang's crispy green bean is probably one of their most popular small bite items, so popular in fact that a frozen version of this dish is sold in grocery stores now too. Their crispy green bean is essentially a tempura battered and then deep fried green bean, which is then served with a side of what they call their signature dipping sauce. Today we're going to do our very best to replicate this with an amped up Siracha aioli done with a bit of dashi powder and rice vinegar. Paired with this, we'll also be doing a double fried tempura green bean and finally rounding it all out with a Chinese 5-spice dry seasoning that I think is really going to elevate the dish today with some nice iconically Chinese aromatics. Finally, to top this all off, because why not, I also took a shot at an alternate version of this dish with a Thai-inspired ground pork and crispy green bean stir-fry as well, which again, for those following along, should look fairly similar to a pad gras prow that we did a while back, because that's essentially the same thing but without the tempura fry. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so kicking things off first with my green beans, I'm starting off here with 8 ounces or half a pound of green beans, which have conveniently already been destemmed for us. If you are not so lucky though, we want to trim off these stems here before frying because this bit is pretty unpleasant to bite into. Moving on to our aioli, now I'll be absolutely honest, anytime that I see the words signature or secret sauce, I can already tell you that we're not going to get very close to replicating it, but we can definitely still make something similar or at the very least something very tasty. By my estimate, the PF Chang's signature dipping sauce is a Siracha aioli, which is more or less just mayonnaise plus Siracha. Today, however, we're going to take a few extra steps by borrowing some elements from the Japanese Kewpie mayo that we made a while back to bring this aioli to life. I'm starting off with half a cup of mayo here to start, followed by a tablespoon each of rice vinegar and white sugar. Then next is my secret ingredient, which is half a teaspoon of dried dashi powder, or in other words, the powdered pantry-stable dashi soup base found in Japanese and Korean cuisine. This is going to bring some nice umami to our aioli today, sort of like MSG powder, but better. Finally, rounding this all out is the prerequisite 2 tablespoons of Sriracha. Then I'm giving this all a quick stir and setting it aside to let that dashi powder dissolve while we get to our tempura batter next. Alright, so for those following along, this is certainly not our first tempura batter. It is, after all, one of my very favorite ways of frying chicken, so this should look fairly familiar to many of you. I'm starting off by separating 2 egg whites into my largest mixing bowl, and as always, remember to do this with 3 bowls in case you break a yolk. Then rounding out my batter here is half a cup each of cornstarch and AP flour, followed by what ended up being a whole cup of soda water, which is going to introduce some nice CO2 to our batter, resulting in some wonderfully puffy and airy bubbles later on. I'm whisking this all up until a smooth batter forms, then tossing in my green beans to coat, and we're heading over to the stove. Over on the stove, I have my fryer heating up to 350 degrees F. Since our tempura batter is so liquid heavy today, our double fry method is going to be really important if we want to avoid ending up with a soggy green bean. To this end, we're doing a very brief 1-minute initial fry to burn off any excess liquid in our batter, then removing and resting our par-fried green beans for 5 minutes while the fryer reheats. The large amount of liquid in our batter is going to drop the temperature of our fryer here, so we definitely want to make sure our oil is back up to 350 degrees F before adding our green beans back in for their second and final 5-minute fry. I'm removing these to a large mixing bowl once they're deeply golden brown, and full disclosure, I also believe that the PF Chang's version is served simply like this with a dipping sauce on the side. I personally also think that we can do a little bit better than this though, because this just feels a little bland to me. So over on the cutting board, I'm tossing my green beans in a dry seasoning with some Chinese 5-spice for some nice aromatics, followed by a pinch of our dashi powder once again. Did I mention that this is one of my favorite secret ingredients? We're giving this a toss immediately out of the fryer to make sure our dry seasoning really sticks to the green beans here, then doing a very quick taste test. Yep, these are bomb as fuck. Then I'm adding these to a cooling rack while I repeat with my remaining green beans. This took me 3 batches all together. Finally, we're serving this all up with a side of our Siracha aioli, and we're ready to eat. Alright, so if I'm being totally honest, I don't think that we're anywhere near the realm of anything that I have ever seen in traditional Chinese cooking. If anything, I think this would be most similar to a Japanese vegetable tempura, which you might see in a bento box meal, but I have no idea where to place the Siracha aioli though. That's just an American thing. All of this said though, I do think what we ended up with here absolutely beats the pants off of any crispy green bean that you'll find at PF Chang's. The egg white and soda water tempura batter has created this wonderfully puffy and airy texture for a light and airy breading, which is also just perfectly crispy thanks to our double fry method as well. Then our dipping sauce is rich with umami with a hint of vinegar and heat from our rice vinegar and sriracha. And finally, our dry seasoning just brings everything to life with a nice aromatic element coming from our 5-spice, which just feels super traditional and nostalgic to me, even though we're nowhere even close to traditional Chinese or Japanese cooking at all. Finally, I would be remiss if we didn't try and do a quick stir fry with these green beans because the opportunity is just sitting right in front of us. Most commonly when I come across green beans in Chinese cuisine, I see them used as a sturdy veggie in some kind of stir fry. Since a green bean is so dense though, most often you'll see them par-cooked before they're stir-fried, typically steamed or blanched. So today we're going to do a quick pork and green bean stir fry, which should look pretty straightforward with one unique difference in that our par-cook will be our tempura fry, which is awesome. So kicking off our stir fry, we're starting off as with most of our Chinese stir fries with our aromatic veggies. This is 4 cloves of crushed and minced garlic, followed by 1 inch or about 1 tablespoon of fine minced ginger. Then next, we're assembling a quick stir-fry sauce here, which for those following along, is drawing some inspiration from 2 of our earlier green bean recipes that we have done in recent memory. The first is our Panda Express string bean chicken, which used some chili crisp oil to bring some pervasive oily heat. And the second is our Thai pad gras prow, which used a more dark and rich sauce base for deep umami qualities. Going in here first is 4 tablespoons of soy sauce and a single tablespoon of rice vinegar to start. Then next is 2 tablespoons of oyster sauce for some rich and earthy umami, followed as promised by 2 tablespoons of our chili crisp oil. Next up, moving on to our ground pork, we're doing a very quick marinade here of 4 tablespoons of soy sauce and 1 tablespoon of Shaoxing wine for some acidity to help tenderize things, followed finally by a half teaspoon each of white pepper and cornstarch to facilitate in our wok fry later on. Finally, I'm giving this all a toss to combine, then setting it all aside to marinate for 30 minutes while we head over to the stove to get started on our wok fry next. Over on the stove, I have my wok heated up as hot as possible, then I'm adding 4 tablespoons of peanut oil, and as always, long yao for that nice non-stick surface. Then going in here first is my garlic and ginger, which we're blooming for about 15 seconds until nice and fragrant, followed immediately by my ground pork. I'm using my spatula here to break up these larger chunks of pork until a nice pebbly texture starts to form, then giving a few tosses to combine until our pork is about 80% cooked through. Then going in here next is my sauce base plus about a 1/4 cup of water, and we're letting this braise for 5 minutes until reduced by about half. Then finally, I'm adding back my tempura green beans to the wok, giving a very quick toss to combine and removing from heat immediately. As a reminder, anytime that we're stir-frying breaded meats and veggies like this, we want to try and minimize the amount of time that they spend in the stir-fry on heat, because the longer that they sit on heat, the soggier that they're gonna get. Finally, I'm serving this all over rice and we're ready to eat. Okay, so for those that have been following along, this series has slowly become my gradual descent into the strange and weird ways that Chinese food is used in American cuisine, which is always fascinating to dig deeper into. I have personally never thought to deep fry a green bean because it just sort of defeats the point of eating a vegetable after a certain point. But out of the fryer though, they sort of remind me of a French fry, which is objectively awesome, but also just makes for a veggie that naturally pairs well in a stir fry because deep fried things in a stir fry is a well-established concept. Think of it as a combination of General Tso's chicken and string bean chicken. The quick wok toss to our green beans helped them retain some nice crunch and bite to them despite having been cooked twice. Then our ground pork is a nice protein addition to our green beans that really help round it out into a full meal instead of a simple appetizer or side. And finally, our stir-fry sauce is simple but effective, with lots of deep earthy umami coming from that oyster sauce and some nice lingering oily heat from our chili crisp oil. So, for what it's worth, if you finish deep frying these green beans and just want to start shoveling them into your goddamn face immediately like me, I mean, look, nobody is stopping you from doing that. I mean, you gotta live your own life. But if you want to turn this into a full meal for dinner though, this is a good one to take a shot at. Okay, so that's it everyone. I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you give this one a shot. For those who are new to the channel, this one is part of a larger series that we've been doing that's dedicated to reproducing classic Chinese American dishes, including a whole bunch of other stuff that comes from the PF Chang's menu. So definitely check out that series next if you haven't yet, because there's a lot of these. For the Bay Area locals, the Wu Can Cook Fried Rice Pop-Up is back at Novel Brewing in Oakland tonight, so come by and say hi if you can. More about that at wucancook.com/eats. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share, be nice interneters, and I'll see you soon. Bye.